they always say like that. If you want to if you want to lose a bit of weight, go to prison.
Yeah.
Because it's like boring. So you get to go to the gym and
well, in fact, what the people always say is that it stops you aging, actually, because people
like a
come
health
out.
farm.
It's like a health farm, except for
all the drugs and the
well, obviously
there's
all
that sort of stuff.
There's different types.
There's different ways of approaching it, isn't there?
But often people come out of prison and you'll say, God, they look great. You know what I mean? They haven't had to deal with. They haven't had to get up to bring the kids to school. They've skipped the whole teenage years, which ages you prematurely.
Yeah.
And, they've been in bed nice and early and up nice and early and, a bit of decent food and a bit of exercise.
Of course, there's other ways. There's lots of other sort of different products knocking around jails. We're not that innocent. But nonetheless, veteran criminal John Gilligan is out and he looks, he looks worn out a little bit, but skinnier. He looks like he's on Ozempic. Do you know that Ozempic-y face thing that goes on?
He does. I mean, he's 73, so he looks well. We won't put him down, but
he's lost a ferocious amount of weight. His shirt is hanging off him.
He has, and of course, this is the copy we get from freelance reporters in Spain, but he describes him as looking looks like a forlorn figure.
Yeah, gaunt and sort of.
He does, and of course he is out on bail after a good lengthy time in prison.
8 months now.
8 months, which is a long stretch in Spain in particular, because they tend to be very much open to the fact of people getting bail. In Ireland, of course, can be harder at times for people who have a criminal past, which obviously Gilligan has both in this country and in Spain. He was before the courts not so long ago in Spain and convicted, though was not put in prison.
So Gilligan has to show up in court and sign on, I suppose, in the police station.
Yeah.
Because he's been released on bail, 10,000, which isn't a huge amount of money for a bail. He was caught, of course, before Christmas, spent Christmas, New Year, and the last 8 months in jail because he was caught, up in this sort of pink cocaine factory, basically. He is still before the courts as such because the case has been examined by a magistrate. And he's lucky to have raised the bail money and paid off whatever legal bills he needed to, because that wasn't very forthcoming from his old comrades and friends. He has been out with his begging bowl really since the new year. So he's finally got the money to get out, because of course in Spain, if you couldn't raise that money, he could be there for 4 years on bail waiting even for the charges to be levelled against him.
Yeah, and of course the courts move slowly in this country and in Spain as well, but it is even more complex over there because it's you're not charged and then you don't get charged effectively till the court case begins. So there's an investigation goes on in the background, and so people are really held without being charged. But he was ultimately released. The longer you spend on remand, effectively, the more that is taken into account by the courts. So he's out.
He knows his way. Of course, we have a new photograph of John, which we were using on the anybody who's watching our YouTube channel. But he knows his way around the media. He knows his way around courtrooms. He showed up to sign on here and was met by a waiting photographer and did the usual, put his phone up to his ear to pretend he was in tense conversation. I've actually experienced that. And it's usually a very business-like conversation he's having with nobody on the other end of the phone. He just, wants to cover his face slightly and not to have to engage with you. He might take the phone down a bit and say something smart arse and then go back, depending on his confidence levels on the day. He doesn't look too confident this particular day. Got out in a taxi, but he made his way in and out through a back door in order to try and evade the photographer, despite getting his photograph taken in the first place. I mean, you might as well just...
I mean, this is always a point of contention, isn't it, for the media, and the media can complain about this. And I always think the public really don't care, do they? Or they don't sympathise too strongly with the media. But basically what happens, and it has happened in Ireland...
They want to see a photograph.
Well, they want to see the photograph, but they don't think the poor journalists deserve to get a photo necessarily. But what happens, of course, in courts here and in Spain, one presumes, is that, in Ireland, courts are done in public. And photographers every day we're describing this to each other, but we know this very well. Every day at the CCJ, there's photographers stand on the steps and they photograph everybody going in. And once somebody appears in court, you don't have a right to privacy. We get this all the time. How dare you take my picture? But once you appear in court, that's our legal system. That is allowed to be reported on. So the photographers will take the pictures and then they walk around the courts and identify the people as they stand up and become witnesses. And, that's regarded as justice should be done in public. That is the position of the Irish state. That is our legal framework, that justice shouldn't be hidden, that you should see and hear everything that goes on. So, but what does happen sometimes is either witnesses or people facing charges, they get a little help either from the court system or even, dare I say it, the police sometimes will help them avoid getting their photograph taken, in which case the media are always, morally outraged. And on this occasion, John Gilligan is obviously somebody helps him sneak out the back to avoid the photographers. And the freelance reporter describes that this is highly unusual and
outrageous.
And why would they help somebody like John Gilligan?
Yeah.
And we've complained about this ourselves over the years at times.
The better days, and we are both old enough to remember them, were when the older courts in Dublin, before the CCJ was operational, which is a fabulous modern building. And of course, those in custody can go in under the building.
Yeah, they get driven in the police vans.
And literally come up through the middle of the building into the courtrooms.
And of course, you can't take photographs in the court building at all.
You can't.
It's totally illegal.
Totally.
You'll be prosecuted.
I know, because the amount of people that have come up to me and asked to do selfies in the courts, and you're like, you sound like, it's the truth, people. You would get actually prosecuted for taking a photograph, even not of somebody that's facing trial. You're not allowed photography at all in the courts. So, but that sort of used to be a case that and a lot of the older courts around the country still have a system where the prison van has to pull up and the suspects have to be led across a road.
Yes.
Now, which gives you the few seconds needed for a photographer to put the...
They're obviously in handcuffs as they come out, so it tends to be a great full-length picture of a guy in handcuffs.
But if somebody's only accused of a crime, it's not a good idea to use that photograph, because a judge can take offence if a jury don't realise that the individual is in custody.
You can.
Yeah?
But, of course...
You knew that, of course.
I did. So that was people, and then other people say, they perp walk them, which is a thing the Americans actively do.
Yeah.
So if they have a high profile...
I would say there's a thing the Spanish actively do. They quite like doing their little videos,
they do like the videos.
Which we like. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming.
Guardia Civil.
But of course, the Americans will deliberately walk somebody in handcuffs to allow the media to get attention. They don't even hide it. It's called a perp walk. But it doesn't happen in Ireland. So certainly in the CCJ... a lot of the more serious criminals are brought directly from the police station by van into the CCJ. So
you're reliant on the likes of Facebook and other photographs and being able to identify the suspects when they're in.
But in the old days, of course, there used to be people as they were going into the district court behind in the sort of Bridewell. Mm-hmm. And do you remember the photographers would be up in the flat complexes shooting down into the... Because although you're not allowed to take a picture again in the court building, if you can zoom in, you can get it. So people, so enterprising photographers used to be up in these flat complexes with the long
drones,
lens.
Really.
Yes, human drones.
But it never went down too well, any of it. No. But anyway, so John Gilligan photographed out, signing in to courts, and will no doubt have to sign into a local police station, keep his address. He's probably, I presume, he's given his passport up for the foreseeable future, and has somehow managed to come up with €10,000 bail. But I think by all accounts, he certainly doesn't have much of that left in his pocket or to spend. He's being described as a forlorn figure. He seems to have very few people left around him. And certainly his one-time girlfriend, Sharon Martin, I imagine isn't too generous with her property, where he was discovered with a little pink cocaine lab.
Yeah.
So the police in Spain tell us.
Yeah, and of course that would be a very serious charge over there, while he was prosecuted in recent times for cannabis and for prescription tablets. The Spanish legal system takes a much more lax attitude to that than what he is accused of now.
Okay. Well, listen, we'll leave him at that. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.